Hello, our friends, Evolutionary, EEARTS, Heart's Home Family.
Hello there, and welcome back.
Make sure, guys, you are subscribed to all three channels, and you can link between them right over here. As you see, you could go straight to Evolutionary, you could go straight to Heart's Home, you could also go to our Patreon and Ko-Fi, and thank you guys for your support over there. Very curious, too, how we did basically 2 videos yesterday focusing mostly on the same topics. And over on EEARTS, which is monetized, albeit it doesn't amount to too much. You had less views than you did on Evolutionary, which they have taken away any ability to ever have it monetized again. That's just part of the system that we are in.
Well, when was it they were going to do some kind of, they sent us a love letter saying, oh, we're going to separate from your partnership. Was that in July now?
It's today that they officially separate. So Evolutionary is no longer part of that program. Not that it was really, as it was only monetized from, I want to say, January of 2018 until May of 2019. The rest of the entire time it hasn't been monetized because, we talked about some things going on that they didn't like. And that's just part of the plan. Everything that we see going on has already been put in writing. It's out in front of our faces. If we look, we've talked about Albert Pike's 1871 letter to his buddy Mazzini, who actually pulled him into the Masonic lodges. And they're talking about the 3 world wars which are to come. Of course, you could look on different wikis and Snopes, and they'll say, oh, this is just, there's no truth behind it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting that it's pretty accurate, and it actually does talk about the 3rd World War being basically, in some ways, is Christianity and Islam mutually destroying each other. And, again, they'll bring in another system. This is what they do. They take different religions, philosophies, ideologies, and distort and control them. This is what they do. And, the Second World War, part of it was bringing about, communism against the capitalism of the West. It's always about controlling through division. That's the bottom line. And it's the secret societies that carry this out. When we look to the Ottoman Empire, for instance, many people might not realize just how big an empire this was. When we look to the maps of the Roman Empire, this is, not quite as big as Rome was, but still, it was a big empire. Now, the difference is the Ottoman Empire was an Islamic empire. And you could see it was knocking on the doors of Vienna and Venice. Budapest, Belgrade, Sofia, Athens, these were all under control of the Ottoman Empire. And 1683, its greatest extent, but it had existed since 1300. It was a long-lived empire. And Nostradamus' life fits right in there at the time of this empire. So in Europe, Christianity, always felt threatened by the possibility of Islamic invasion because, there was Islamic invasion into Europe. Actually, when you look to the historical Dracula, Vlad Tepes, who was he fighting? He was fighting the Ottoman Empire coming in. He was fighting against Islam. He was Christian. But again, he liked to also have his morning tea or coffee or whatever it is while people were stuck on spikes in front of him slowly dying.
Yeah, we can say he kind of dabbled in other side hobbies.
Yeah, absolutely. He used the brutality to put fear into his enemy. And then again, was Prince Charles, now King Charles, who's a blood relation. Elizabeth Bathory used to bathe in the blood of virgins, another blood relation, intertwined with all the quote-unquote nobles.
I gotta say, when we read these history books, I do believe them, and she would bathe in the blood of virgins. I look at this science today and all those who do go out and give blood, and I just gotta wonder, when they're taking all the stem cells out, Where does that blood really go?
Yeah, exactly. As we've said, the true controllers are much more like vampires than we would realize. So Nostradamus, gave us his prophecies. He gave us 10 centuries of 100 prophecies. That's a lot. Each one 4 lines, a quatrain, that's the 4 part. So he gave us a lot to decipher, and we were talking about this last night, and I think most of his quatrains have probably passed, but then there's some that don't seem to be fulfilled. And he lived again between 1503 and 1566. When we look at some of his prophecies, they're distinguished by the fact that, some of these areas you can say were World War II, or you might think they were World War II because there's battles that went through. And yeah, there was just the atrocities of war that happened in World War II. Some of these areas were World War I and World War II, as well as many, many other wars throughout time. But the difference is he did speak of, again, an Islamic invasion. And not just him, others have too spoke of this as Islamic invasion and threat. And it's underway right now. It's already started. The fires have been lit. And, it's never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same. Now, we can still change these timelines. This is the big hope, is that we can waken humanity up enough to understand that whether you're, a Islamic fundamentalist, Christian fundamentalist, you're totally atheist, agnostic, you're spiritual, non-religious, we can still change all these prophecies. We could view the prophecies in some ways as they are perhaps shaping expectations of the future. In other ways, you could view them as these are warnings. Hey, we got to change our ways because this is what could happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, the energy of consciousness is the same no matter what thing you practice. And we all have that ability to bring a certain reality into this realm. We've just been taught to not practice it or not even try, and just basically they've laid out this storyline and they said submit to this because this is going to happen, and that doesn't have to be.
Absolutely. So again, we're putting all this out with the hope that we can change these timelines, because what he did see was absolutely a massive Islamic invasion, and there's so many different quatrains that talk about it. Actual books have been written just about the Islamic invasions that have not been manifested yet, but which are clearly spoken of in his quatrains. Through fire and arms not far from the Black Sea. Of course, we're all focused on the Black Sea, right? This is, the area of which we have the conflict going on right now. It will come from Persia to occupy Trezibana. Now, Persia is Iran, so we'll come from Iran. Now, we know Iran is most definitely part of the alliance of Russia, China, the BRICS nations, and North Korea will be there as well. There's so many nations, probably 20 to 30 that will actively participate, maybe more. Very well could be much, much more. Certainly more if you consider all the immigrants and migrants that have come from all over the globe to be part of this. And it talks about the Adriatic Sea being covered with Arab blood. Yeah, it's going to be just this brutal period. Now, what's interesting is Nostradamus talked about this war lasting a long time, and Alois Ermauler talked about it being relatively short. But this area that you see here in the Balkans is key in Alois Ermauler's prophecies. And they do talk about famine. They do talk about plague. I mean, those two things do always go hand in hand with war. When you have a war that lasts a while, you're always going to end up with famine. Nobody's tending the fields. Crops are getting destroyed. And then you're going to end up getting plague because of, the obvious reasons, bloody battlefields, there's going to be not enough people that are going to be able to be tended to. But he talks about these Islamic invasions into Europe. And there is one that also actually points to in a springtime invasion that feels very, very much like it could be this particular upcoming April, perhaps the one after that. Very, very disconcerting. You know how many people have spoke of the Pope and the Vatican, right? The Pope and his whole entourage leaving because of war and earthquakes. And it does feel, and there's been so many people that have seen that. Again, it's just one of those things that seems to pop up in these timelines. So I wanted to bring that all up before we look at the news and before we go into France, which is a big part of what we're going to talk about today. You see a massive fire breaks out at Warner Brothers Studios. Multiple firefighters were dispatched to the scene yesterday evening due to a two-alarm fire after receiving numerous reports of an explosion and large fire. Heavy smoke visible for miles was caused by an electrical fire on the rooftop. Interesting. A transformer blew up. Just nothing to see there, guys? Or is there something to see there? There's something to see everywhere. Kurdish illegals arriving in Italian waters. Now, the Kurds don't have a country of their own. Look at them, throwing away their passports. They're throwing away their papers. Why would they? And yeah, it looks like money too, right? They're throwing away everything. Why? Why would they do that? Boy, those guys, certainly, yet again, another boat full of guys of military age, clean cut, look very fit.
I don't know if I had to guess. Usually when you see someone throwing stuff away in that manner, they might just have a one-way ticket to something.
One-way ticket, yeah, and they expect things to be changed because, you go into a new country and you are going to need your papers and, checkpoints, all this stuff, prove who you are. Well, if you expect that, the whole system is going to be overturned, you're not going to need those, papers anymore. Kurds, by the way, are typically very good fighters because they've had to fight so hard to survive. And, they've been also at war, or you could look at it as they've been basically, how do you say it? I mean, the Turkish government, Turkey, by the way, is the leftover Ottoman Empire, at least the seat of it, has most definitely always been at odds with the Kurds. So 500,000 migrants heading to Italian waters is what we hear. And we already know in all these European nations, you can't even count the number that are already in place. This is the biggest Trojan horse event we've ever seen in history that we know of. I mean, this dwarfs anything we've ever seen before. Operation Barbarossa, all these, what's going to take, what is, I should say, already taking place, because this is the thing to realize. We are in the beginning of the Warface. The real Warface is starting. The French president canceled his press conference in Brussels to chair a crisis meeting in Paris as the riots forced Macron to leave the EU summit. Yeah. Again, it just boggles the mind, these people. Here you have in 2020 Macron to the Lebanese people. The revolution doesn't happen by anybody's order. You got to make it happen. And 2023 to the French. Protests are not legal. No one has the right to riot against the people's representatives. Yeah, in other words, as long as we're in power, that's all that matters.
I know. Yeah, they just have their statement of the day, whatever needs to be said.
And so are we witnessing the beginning of another real revolution in France? What is really going on? There's multiple things going on. You've had real protests by the people that have been oppressed in a military dictatorship. There's no other way you can put it. And now you have them lighting on fire the sleeper cells that are in place. All the illegal migrants that have come through over the years, and so many in the latter part of this time are just military. I mean, the percentage of military people coming in has just climbed in relation to people that are just looking for a better way of living. We are at war. This is a war, and parts of France do resemble a war zone. It did start with the Yellow Jacket protests. Those are nothing compared to what's happening now, as now France is just completely out of control and burning from the inside. Again, it's a Trojan horse event. Riots have spread to the city of Lyon. Absolutely. I mean, it's incredible what we are seeing. Here you have locals going out with baseball bats to fight back against the migrants looting shops and businesses. Yeah, and it's reminiscent of what we see in the States with Antifa. Again, this is part of a much, much bigger plan. And I've seen the same thing in Ireland, too. I mean, we haven't always focused and pulled that up, but the same thing's been going on in Ireland. And I've seen horrible videos of random masked migrants just knocking out sometimes girls, young teenage girls, just walking on the street. All of a sudden, they cold cock them. It's crazy, but these people have been told to come in and cause chaos. And what happens is that when you go to these people, like take the Kurds, they don't have a homeland. They've been basically living as migrants their entire life in many cases. And so many other countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, think about the hatred for anybody from the Western NATO world in Iraq and Afghanistan. Again, 5 million people have died, according to the numbers they gave us recently, since the 9/11 incident in wars because of 9/11. So you have tremendous hatred going on, tremendous. I mean, and it's really obvious as they're shooting here and taking out cameras. The weaponry you're seeing too exhibited is obviously. I mean, these are military grade weapons that they have. They've been set up very, very well for what's to come. And here you have, again, Islamist rioters. What happened there? That just sort of decided to flip on its own. Okay, I didn't do that. All right, well, anyway. Here we have buildings going down. We have tons to show whether or not they're going to flip stuff on us as we're doing the video. So, I know I could feel Cindy saying, you better wrap this up quick because they're going to just shut it off. France is looking like a war-torn country. Pharmacy collapsed after being set on fire. 70 stores in the city center, small town, ravaged, looted. Rioters trying to storm the central stock exchange in Marseille. Again, they've been promised things. They've been given weapons. Look at the weaponry. This kid, I don't know if he's been trained or not, but it doesn't really look like it. And certainly wouldn't be running in front of him. They've been armed on purpose. It's not easy to get guns legally in many of the European nations. This has been set up in advance. Absolutely, there's sleeper cells in Britain, in Ireland, all over the EU, all over the US. This is coming, unfortunately, to a city near you. It is just the reality. This is what they have planned. This is Toulouse. Now, we don't want to fall into their trap because they're all about creating hatred. Ultimately, that's what it's all about. If they could get you to have hatred towards somebody that's not like you for whatever reason, they win. So, we were having that discussion with one of our real good friends. What do you do when you're confronted? Now, I know a lot of people will just get angry and that's exactly what they want. Now, not saying don't get angry, just realize the bigger plan. The bigger plan is to turn you into them. That's the bigger plan. Here you have somebody that was saying back in 2017, and got banned because, saying France will become an Islamic country through Jihad. Entire world will be subject to Islamic rule. Think about what we see in the Islamic nations. Now, I don't think that's really the case ultimately, because, it's just another tool. But boy, is it a scary tool, because, again, when you look to like Saudi Arabia, what happens, if you break any sort of Islamic law? You lose a hand, you lose your head. It's extreme, and fundamentalism is there's nothing more dangerous than fundamentalism of any kind.
No, and I'm looking at all this, and this is really horrible and scary. But having the understanding that this is their plan, this is their program, and it's to fund all sides. And I don't think we're too far away from seeing these things here, and these people go over and they just tear each other up, but they're being funded, by the same being. So it's so much about us not falling into that trap to go against one another, but getting with as many as we can who are like-minded, pulling together and creating, even if it's our own little corner of the universe, creating this sort of oneness with the understanding that, there's got to be a priority, and the priority should be that we help one another and make sure there's food and make sure people are taken care of, and that we're creating a new world. So once you find that common ground and you prioritize that, then guess what? We have done exactly what the other side has done, but, on a totally different duality spectrum. So it's like we do have to look at those controllers and mirror what they're doing, but in a positive way. So we have to be like our own pendulum swing and find a priority, stick with it, so that we can stabilize. They're going to really do everything they can to destabilize us as a people and weaken us. And, a lot of people go, if you were to go just even 2 days without some kind of power to your house, that would just cause great devastation. You lose all the food in your refrigerators. Other things are going to be affected by weather related, probably heat right now. You might not have the ability to have, look at what's going on over in the East Coast, where people need to be running their air purifiers or fans. And if they were to shut off the electricity, that would really do a lot of damage.
And this is Prophecies of Alois Ermeiler. And he talks about Paris in France becoming the victim of its own people. They ignite everything revolution is, and it's going wildly. The large city with the Iron Tower, Paris, is on fire, and this has been done by its own people, not by those who come from the East. In Italy, it's going wildly too. They kill many people there, and the Pope flees. Many clergy will be killed. Many churches collapse. It's fascinating to see, and this is taken from this particular site is stressing the Christian side of things. Here, again, he talks about the 3 days of darkness that come during the war. And this is something that so many have seen. During the war is the great darkness, and it lasts 72 hours. The person here is saying, what was that? Asteroid impact? What is it that causes that? And some have said pole shift, the Earth's going to stop, and, all these different things. It's interesting that he does speak of Germany having a totally different climate after the war and after certain events. And again, the admission is in the 3 days of darkness, don't go outside. Do not go outside. And so I'll just read this part. During the war, the greatest darkness that lasts 72 hours. In this event, I see large cross in the heavens. An earthquake will be thunder and lightning that frightens all the world. And they cry out, there is a God. It'll be dark in a day during the war, and then breaks forth a hail of thunder and lightning, and the earthquake shakes the earth. Behavior during the dark days. The lights do not burn except candlelight. There is no electricity. Whoever breathes the dust gets a cramp and dies. Outside, the dust kills many people. Then do not go out of the house. Do not look out of the windows during the 72 hours. Do not open any window. Cover them with black paper. Keep the blessed candles burning. All open water is toxic, and all the foods that are not in sealed cans. Also eat no food in jars. Do not go out. Do not look out of the windows. I say it again, and pray. So, after 72 hours, it'll be over. Outside, there will be countless dead people and animals from lack of water and by the toxic cloud. Overnight, more people will die than in the 2 world wars. After the disaster, more people will die than in the 2 world wars together. The rivers will have so little water in them you can easily walk through them. The cattle will fall, the grass is withered and yellow, the dead people are all yellow and black. The wind drives the clouds of deaths off to the east. Peace then, resettlement in empty areas. There will be a peace and a good time. After the disaster, a long, happy time will come. Those who shall experience this peaceful time can be thankful and very happy, for it shall be very good. So he sees things much, much quicker than, say, Nostradamus, who saw a very, very long war. And, again, this just shows there's all different possibilities. We see things, we maybe highlight certain things in our visions and focus on that. And, there obviously is a time dilation here, too, because Nostradamus was alive from 1503 to like 1566. And Alois died in 1959, if I remember right. So, a lot of time between the two of them, which could lead to a lot of different possibilities as far as timelines.
I know, and I have had dreams about this, not exactly as he says it, but have was given instructions and giving other people instructions when it comes to the darkness outside. Yes, you do put the black plastic and you tape your windows and you don't go outside. Now, what is going on outside, I'm not exactly sure. I just know it's not good for us. There could be different types of entities that we don't know, and it is really a very yucky vision, and I don't have all the answers. I can just tell you what I was given.
And he finishes on this one with the landless people prefer now to where the wilderness has emerged. Anyone can settle where he likes and have as much land as he can cultivate. Warmer climate in Germany. By climate changes, wine is cultivated with us again. There are tropical fruits grown here in Germany with us, much warmer than now. So, very curious, to say the least.
It is, to have something change so drastically. But, I do think things are going to be very, very different after that finally tips and things have gone to a point where they are going to change. And we were watching this video with the puppies, and it's like Sita would be, if I could walk her on a leash, Sita would be the one that's just walking along, and then Rama, he has so much energy, he would be bouncing like this little guy. And our pets are so precious. They can teach us so many things. They find the funnest games to play. Even when there's nothing to play with, they figure something out. And we could just really look at them and learn so many things if we just adapted some of our practices that our pets do so naturally.
So, excuse me, guys. I think about the contact we had when Cindy came through and was channeling the teenagers from our future. And, again, that was like 2055. Yeah. And, their timelines could be off because they don't hold a calendar anymore. They don't pay attention to anything that we're paying attention to anymore. They're living in a very, very tribal, fluid way. And they're doing things like astral projecting, off-planet, interacting with extraterrestrials on a regular basis. Very different life. And you could look to what Alois was talking about, a very good time. That's how they view it. And yet there are people in the cities at the same time, according to what they told us, but they don't interact with the people in the cities. And, again, those smart cities are just tiny little portions, in comparison. to the size of the cities today. Like if we looked at, say, Manhattan, and you looked at the smart city, it might just be like Soho area, and there's nobody else really in all of NYC, but they're all congested down into the Soho area. Just to give you like an example, this is again because the war and so many other things, the pestilences, and you guys understand, I know, everything that's happened with the plague upon the land. Again, there's going to be a lot less people, as those guide stones had said. But the ones that are free and steer clear and don't tarnish their souls, because again, this is a spiritual battle, which just means it's of different densities. And it's all about frequency. And really what they want to do is keep your soul trapped into the lower fourth density, where they can still utilize you even when you're out of body or when you come back in body. And our mission is to mitigate that. We don't want people trapped. And we've never gotten, and we've not seen by example, that humans are trapped here. Now, what would trap us? Our own programming, our own expectations, our own beliefs. And there is typically a period of a little confusion when we leave the body. And when that event happens and it's on a battlefield or it's done in a traumatic way, that really adds to the confusion. We talk more about this on Heart's Home. So join us over there and subscribe over there to get more in depth on what happens when we do leave the body, as we've done videos on that and the different densities. I do think that the system itself has corrupted so many things. It's made the very best effort it can do to distort teachings of great teachers, guides that have come, whether it's Yeshua, Buddha, or you name it, they've distorted it. And the good news is our abilities are increasing. We're going to be able to see right through, and we'll be able to read the truth in everything.
Right. And understand that when you do work on your energy body and you do hear the truth, if you listen, you're going to know the truth. The tendency is, however, for people to continue to believe what they thought was true because it's more comfortable and everybody else believes that. So, I can be part of the herd if I just stay on this train. But when you do get your energy body strengthened and you're working on yourself, you come to the understanding in your heart chakra what really is true, and you leave those teachings behind. And it really is about just dropping everything that you thought you knew, and almost like a little child picking the information back up and feeling it with your heart piece by piece, and then piecing your life back together. It's not an easy time. It's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult journey, but boy, is it worth it.
Absolutely. And again, thank you guys for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Much love. God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.